Hey, this is Chris Haller with Konveio. I want to walk you through what our recommended toolkit is for taking your public meetings online and creating virtual public meetings. We're going to be looking at 3 different tools that we combine in a unique way that we think gives you a lot of the tools and the ways to interact that you would typically see in your public meeting and replicating them online. The 3 tools we're going to be looking at are Zoom webinars, YouTube for live streaming, and Konveio for content engagement. So let's take a quick look at where each of those tools have their strengths and how they're similar or different. Zoom is obviously a great webinar tool. It's subscription-based. It works really well in our current setup where people are working from home, where you can bring in panelists that might be working from home. You can present together. Everybody can share their screen. So it's really good at that live component. Even though it does offer the opportunity to record, it's not as easy to kind of integrate. But where it really shines are the audience engagement tools. So you can not just have text chat or simple polls to engage your audience. You can also unmute citizens that are participating afterwards, and they can participate and speak up like they would in a public workshop. So it's really good at that real-time piece where we think YouTube is stronger and where it is a nice integration where you can stream from Zoom to YouTube Live is the streaming component. So it's a free tool. If you were to use it by itself, it only offers one presenter and is therefore somewhat limited. So that's where Zoom is sort of a key piece. But it's that automatic recording and replay that is a really nice option to take your webinar and extend that online afterwards. Looking at the audience engagement features, it's limited to text chat only. Which is, again, an option if that's enough. So in that case, you can kind of use it instead of Zoom. But again, Zoom has much better features in terms of the live audience engagement. And then last, I want to look at Konveio. Konveio is our content engagement tool. So what it really brings to the table that the other 2 don't is the additional engagement options that you would have in an open house, for example, where you can show poster boards, people can walk up to them, they can comment on them specifically, they can maybe do dot voting exercises to show you their priorities. It's that kind of interaction that is just not available in the live streaming. And then the other part that makes it really great is it extends that engagement for people that can't make it to a workshop or that may have ideas afterwards that they weren't able to get in during the live Q&A session. So using Zoom and YouTube, again, is a great way to get to replace the in-person live part of your workshop. And then Konveio brings the additional engagement features to the table along with that extension where an embedded YouTube live stream automatically becomes available as a recording afterwards that people can kind of take a look at. So let's look at this setup. This is sort of the technical part. We're going to be looking at sort of a nuts and bolts type of integration, how to set up each of those tools and then how to link them together so that you can use them in a streamlined fashion that then replaces an in-person workshop. So the first one is a Zoom webinar setup. So Zoom requires a subscription, so you can subscribe to the base plan, add the webinar setting or feature to that. And then as you log in, you can basically just click on the schedule a webinar button and that brings up the toolkit to go in or the form to build in a new webinar. So you type in a topic, add a quick description, add a time when the webinar is going to take place. And then we recommend requiring registration, which gives you an idea of how many people will show up. It also collects user information so you can send meeting information as well as follow-up information. So it's a great way to kind of enable that. We typically recommend turning on the video for both host and panelists so that people can see you, which is a nice note, obviously, in these times where we work and act remotely. And allow people to both use their computer and audio or telephone to join. And additionally, like Q&A is a good one to turn on, the practice session too, so you can start and you're not immediately broadcasting. The last thing to take into consideration here is you can record the webinar from in here. If you use it by itself, that's a good way to capture the meeting. In our integration with YouTube, it doesn't matter as much because we're using YouTube to basically capture everything. After you save your webinar and schedule it, the webinar is ready to go live and collect people and collect registrations. So the link that it provides, links to that you would use to send out using social media, email campaign on your website, etc., directs people to this webinar registration page that captures some basic information. You can add to that if necessary. And then as people register, they will receive an email confirmation with the tools that they need to download. And that's really sort of a key thing to keep in mind here. It is sort of a threshold that some people, or a barrier to participation, because people will have to download software for this to work, which is one of the reasons why we like that YouTube integration, because it gives people access that don't want to install software on their computer. The next thing to highlight here is there's one more quick tweak we need to make in the Zoom setup in the settings for the live streaming integration to work. So in the side menu under Account Management, you'll find the webinar settings. You'll scroll to the bottom of that, and then you can look at the webinar settings, and you'll see that the custom live streaming is not enabled. I told you we're using YouTube, but this integration is also, since we're planning for an integration where we want to embed the YouTube viewer directly into Konveio, we're going to go ahead and enable this custom streaming service. So you just click on Edit, enable that, and then click Save and move on. The next part that we want to configure is we want to get this all set up before the meeting happens, including that Konveio landing page with the YouTube live streaming embedded. And so the YouTube live streaming is the next thing we need to figure out and set up. If you haven't already, you would need to create a YouTube account with your Google account and create a channel for yourself. That's pretty easy to do. Once you have that set up, you would click on the Go Live button, which allows you to schedule a meeting, and that's what we're going to do. Clicking that, you'll get to the live stream interface where you can set up a new stream. In this case, we're just going to click on New Stream down here and add a new stream. So you would type in the same event title and description that you've used for your Zoom webinar. You would click the scheduling option here and turn that on and set it to the same time that you have for your Zoom meeting. And the list that's not for kids, and then click on Create Stream, which will create the event and make it ready to go live. So at this point, it just sits here. There is more information we'll have to copy later on that we'll come back to. And then there's two more settings options on the top that we need to adjust. So the first one, we're going to click on the stream settings on this little gear icon. And under live chat, we'll turn off the live chat. This is important because we're going to use in this setup Zoom as the main way to engage live, and so we'll have the audio and the text chat in there that we're going to use. We don't want to also monitor YouTube, so we're going to turn it off in this case. If you're just using YouTube, you would obviously leave that on. And then the next thing is we want to allow embedding. So this is typically checked by default, but just double check. So at this point, we're ready to integrate this into our Konveio Digital Community Workshop page. So Konveio is a content engagement tool that allows you to build a one-stop page for that people can come to and participate. They can follow along live with the live stream, and then they can use Konveio to add. So they can use the live stream here. They'll get some instructions on how to participate. And then, as I mentioned, there's additional ways to engage for the audience using poster boards. And other sort of ways and means to kind of provide their feedback, such as dot voting using embedded surveys, sort of general surveys, and other tools like that. So for that reason, we're going to embed and make this sort of a one-stop landing page that both is available at the time of the meeting and then for a couple of weeks afterwards for people that couldn't make it. And to include the YouTube clip, we're going to go back to the YouTube live stream page. From the scheduled event, we're going to click on the share icon up here, click on embed, and that will present us with the embed code. We're going to copy that and click on edit on our digital workshop page. Scroll down to the part where we have the current placeholder image. Those templates generate those automatically, so we're just going to go in and replace that. To do that, we need to switch to a plain text editor to see the code. As you can see, there's already some code in here, and I don't want to scare you by showing you some HTML code. Basically, you just replace everything, so highlight that, paste the code that we just sort of copied, find the width parameter in here. This is just sort of a quick side note. It's a fixed width, so on certain devices it'll look too big and overlap, so we're going to change that to 100%. Just manually type that in. And then when we save this, you'll see the YouTube clip is now, or YouTube viewer is actually in there for the live streaming, and it's ready to go live. Now, when you click on it, you'll see when the event is scheduled, and it gives you an announcement. You can even get a reminder for that time. So that's all taken care of. And at this point, we want to make sure we kind of provide some good instructions on how to participate and how this is all going to go down. So we're going to go back to edit this, type in some text about how to participate. If you want to participate live and ask questions, join our Zoom meeting. Here's how you register. So you can type in or add our registration link in here. And after doing that, provide additional instructions on how to stream YouTube, which again doesn't require software to download, and also mention that this is available for a certain period of time afterwards. So clicking save will again put all this information in here. It's now ready for people to prepare themselves for the meeting, to sign up if they want to register live, and to follow along as this meeting happens. And from here, the next slide, at this point we're really ready to wait for the time of the webinar to come around. So the day of the webinar of our public meeting has now arrived, maybe 15-20 minutes beforehand. We're going to get ready and get prepared for this. The first thing you want to do is log into your Zoom account, click on Start This Webinar, which will ask you to open the Zoom app that you have installed on your computer. You'll click that, you'll join using the computer audio in this case. You can see we're at this point in practice mode only. It's not broadcast just yet. And then there's one more step that we need to take care of at this point to make sure that the streaming integration fully works. So at the time of your meeting, you go in here, click on the More link, and then on Custom Live Streaming Settings to go live. Basically that'll bring up a new window in your browser. So you're going to switch back into your browser window, and we need to add a few items into the form that it presents us with. And so at this point, we're going to go back to the YouTube meeting. We're going to copy the information that's down here in the stream settings. So we're going to copy the system key and the stream URL, and we're going to paste those in here. And then we're going to go, so in the first two fields, the second field or the third field, we're going to go to the live streaming URL. So you're going to bring up the digital workshop page you have on Konveio, and this could as well be sort of a different website you're embedding this in. And so you just paste that in here, and then you click Go Live, and that basically brings you back. It goes through a quick settings on configuration, and we'll get ready for that integration to work and automatically live stream your webinar to YouTube. The step takes just a minute or a couple minutes, and at that point you can see, if you were to look back at your YouTube screen, you don't have to do this, but you can see this is still a preview, and at the time of your meeting this goes into live mode. If you want, you can double check that, and if it doesn't work right, there's a button up here that says go live, and you can click that at any point. Just be careful, at that point you're already kind of visible. So in which case, because of that, I would recommend just waiting in here. You can see the live integration is now ready to go, and as soon as you hit broadcast here, as the time approaches, you can you'll be visible to your audience in Zoom, but you'll also be visible then and go live on YouTube. So both of those then happen in sync. You can go through your workshop just like you would. So it's live on the website, as I mentioned. And at this point, you don't need to worry about any of this anymore. You just use Zoom to navigate and facilitate your web meetings. So you can start sharing your screen to show a presentation. You can use the polling and other features, Q&A features, for facilitating that workshop. You can unmute participants if you want their live feedback. And at the end of the meeting, you just click that button, and at that point, the nice thing is that everything is readily available. So as soon as you end the session, YouTube automatically ends this stream and processes the feature, which is nice because at that point it automatically becomes available for people that come to this afterwards and want to listen in and get the introduction video and the welcome that was just happening, and they can then participate again online for the next couple of weeks, including all the engagement that Konveio provides with poster boards, surveys, and other functionality that you introduced at your meeting. That's it. That's the quick walkthrough. I know it was pretty technical, but we really wanted to sort of get into the nuts and bolts on how to set this up. As I mentioned, each of those tools can be used separately. You don't need to integrate them. There's great uses for just using Zoom webinars. There's use cases where a free YouTube live stream might be all you need. Either of those, as I mentioned, are a nice tie-in for that digital engagement that can happen on Konveio or on any other website you're using. Thank you so much for your time, and hope this was helpful.